and for the next half hour, I'll be reading from the Investigative Post on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The worst landlord in Buffalo? The Buff Real Limited Liability Corporation, owned by Menahem Zippel, is the city's most prosecuted property owner in recent years. His company owes more than $400,000 in fines, fees, and taxes, and most of the properties are in foreclosure. No landlord has been prosecuted more often in Buffalo Housing Court the past 2 years for building code violations than a limited liability corporation owned by Menahem Zippel. 13 of Buff Real LLC's properties have gone to court since 2024. The company currently has 7 open court cases against it. The company owes $351,659 in court-ordered fines and demolition fees, according to public records viewed by Investigative Post. It also owes the city and Erie County $80,041 in property taxes and garbage fees. More than 20 of Buff Real's 30 properties, many of them vacant, have gone into foreclosure. Nearly 1 in 4 of the company's 29 properties in the city have burned. Zippel's company faces violations ranging from lead paint contamination and rodent infestation to sewage backups and failing to maintain vacant properties. As the company has failed to maintain its properties and pay its bills, living conditions have deteriorated for its tenants and their neighbors. The company's properties have 123 active building code violations, generated 327 calls made to 911 since 2020, prompted 307 calls to the city's 311 complaint line. Rats live in there. It's been on fire. It should be torn down, Dennis Young said of the Buff Real property on his block of Bates Avenue in the Seneca Babcock neighborhood. Everybody in the neighborhood wants to see it gone. He was always irresponsible, added Michelle Bates, 39, who lived in one of Buff Real's properties in Lovejoy for 2 years. Investigative Post spoke to a dozen tenants and neighbors who lived in or near Buff Real properties. Those interviews and public records reveal a pattern of problems, including loss of heat or electricity, lead paint, rodents and pests, deteriorating roofs, and vacant properties with squatters. In one case, a tenant has experienced years of raw sewage flooding her basement. Lou Petrucci, commissioner of the city's Permits and Inspections Department, said Buff Real's negligence has been on his staff's radar for years. This is not just one broken window. This isn't an individual who deferred maintenance because they lost their job, Petrucci said. This is a lot of properties with a lot of violations that have not been cured. Zippel, 33, did not respond to multiple requests for comment. 2 vacant properties, 1 street. Buff Real began acquiring properties in 2018, nearly half of them on the city's east side, while the rest are scattered between the west side, South Buffalo, and Black Rock. The company purchased 124 Bates Avenue, located in Seneca Babcock, in June 2023. Young, 62, has lived across from the house for 5 years. One night in September 2023, After a few years of seeing squatters come and go from the vacant bungalow, he watched it go up in flames. Everybody reported this house one time or another, Young said. For a while, they were shoveling rat poison in there. Young and two other neighbors said they've seen city workers boarding up the house, but not once in prior years have they observed Zippel or anyone else from Buff Reel checking in on the property. He believes 124 Bates vacancy is dangerous for children and families. And there is a photo of 124 Bates Avenue. It's pretty decrepit looking. The windows are boarded up. The front yard has got trash in it and dirt. It says assessed value $113,000. Unpaid court fines and tickets $16,921. 311 calls, 10. Young and two other neighbors said they've seen city workers boarding up the house. We're getting more and more little kids in the neighborhood every year. They're sprouting up all over, Young said. We can't keep the kids out of there. Down the street at 210 Bates, a property Buff Reel purchased in November 2020, it also sits vacant. And there's a photo of 210 Bates Avenue, which is pretty unoccupied looking. The windows are not boarded up, but some of the woodwork is missing. The front yard has weeds growing in it. Assessed value $78,000. Court fines and tickets $15,496. 311 calls, 12. 911 calls, 44. Active code violations, 13. Between the two Bates properties, Buff Reel has been hit with $32,417 in court-ordered fines as of July 10th. The company defaulted on mortgages for both properties, leading to foreclosure proceedings. A limited liability corporation owned by a different investor bought 124 Bates in May. Young and other neighbors confirmed that the new owners gutted the house in recent weeks. Buff Reel has a no-show for its most recent court appearance on July 10th. Housing Court Judge Philip Dabney levied an additional $1,000 in fines for property neglect. Squatters on Hamburg Street. 90 Hamburg Street, a vacant property in the First Ward, has been in housing court 6 times, according to court documents. It was back there last week. Buff Reel acquired the property in November 2023. Trouble started shortly thereafter. 2 tenants were evicted in April 2024, according to housing court records. Over the course of that year, the property became vacant and was overtaken by squatters. During visits, inspectors found drug paraphernalia and signs of squatters throughout. Picture of 90 Hamburg Street. The assessed value is $230,000. Unpaid city, county taxes, and sewer bills, $7,963. Total court fines and tickets, $24,824. Demolition bill, $39,100. This one isn't quite as dilapidated looking, except that it definitely looks vacant and many of the windows are broken. On the morning of October 18th, 2024, the building caught fire. Buff Reel began receiving court summonses for the property in December 2024. The court appointed Zippel a lawyer, Richard Berger, but Berger withdrew his representation in May of last year. The owner has made no effort whatsoever to maintain this property, resulting in severe and widespread deterioration. City Housing Inspector Robert Roman wrote in July of 2025. Last month, the city ordered a demolition. A year later, the house is still standing. Petrucci said the city plans to demolish 90 Hamburg later this month. He added the house follows the same pattern as other properties owned by Buff Real. The property is not properly maintained. It's not properly boarded. We get squatters, there's a fire, and then we end up demolishing it, Petrucci said. This seems to be a recurrent theme. Representatives for Buff Real did not appear in court for 90 Hamburg on July 10th, a third no-show in court for the property this year. Dabney levied $1,500 in fines for property neglect. Mitch Nowakowski is the Common Council member for the Fillmore District, which includes 90 Hamburg. He told Investigative Post his department initially was able to reach Zippel, but the landlord stopped returning calls. Court records indicate that Zippel has relocated to the Miami area, according to county records. He also owns a 6-bedroom, 3,000 square foot home in Williamsville, assessed at $545,000. Two other problem properties. Kisha Casey, 39, has lived at 20 Elmer in the Kensington Bailey neighborhood since November 2022. In the time she rented from Buff Real, Casey has dealt with everything from raw feces in a flooded basement to a collapsing deck and roof. In March, the county health department cited Buff Real for failing to maintain 20 Elmer in a clean and sanitary condition after a flood filled her basement with sewage. On top of that, Casey has received notices that her water will be shut off. I'm just on edge. I don't know if I'm going to have to move, Casey said. Buff Real bought 20 Elmer in June 2021. The company hasn't paid taxes or sewer bills for the property since that year. City records show the house is headed for foreclosure. Like 20 Elm Street, 42 Wilson Street has been in housing court since 2024. As of July 10th, 24 Wilson currently faces $39,763 in fines, the most of any Buff Real property, save for 90 Hamburg Street. It too burned in a fire 5 years ago. And there's a picture of 42 Wilson Street. Assessed value $110,000. Court fines and tickets $22,263. 311 calls 10. Code violations 90. And again, it is an overrun, dilapidated looking building. Neighbor Chris Hawley, 45, told Investigative Post that the property has long been abandoned and a blight on the community, which he credits to its notorious deadbeat landlord. However, Hawley, a preservationist and urban planner working on Mayor Sean Ryan's demolition team, thinks 42 Wilson is worth stabilizing. Fundamentally, it's a good house, Hawley said. It's not one we're angling to get demolished. Well, there's a picture of the inside, and you can see where the ceiling has fallen down. It's laying on the floor inside. It looks like it could have been a nice building at one time, but it's falling apart. Plaster is off of the walls. Things are just hanging. The floor is a mess. Hawley may have to advocate for the city to save 42 Wilson. On July 10th, after Buff Reel failed to appear in housing court, Dabney scheduled a demolition hearing for September 3rd. Zippel and his company are not the only problem landlords operating in Buffalo. Investigative Post has previously reported on Andre Foster and Joseph V. Parlato. But Petrucci said Zippel's company has been especially challenging. This is more than just the routine maintenance, Petrucci said. This is someone that has routinely run up a series of various fees, taxes, and demolition fees that are only in the city of Buffalo. This is not acceptable to me. It's not acceptable for the citizens of the city of Buffalo. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Investigative Post on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Latest, July 14th, 2026. The worst landlord in Buffalo? That was the article that we just read. July 13th, 2026. Buffalo News corporate chief making moves. I hope I'm wrong about David Hoffman, the new chairman of Lee Enterprises, whose holdings include the Buffalo News, is hell-bent on saving print newspapers. In a puff piece that ran last week in many of his newspapers, including the News, Hoffman is portrayed as the man who's on a mission to save your newspaper. The article quotes Hoffman as saying, "We're running right towards some things that everybody else is running away from." He's right about that. Print newspapers are now the preferred go-to for just 5% of news consumers. July 9th, 2026, Buffalo could create new police oversight body. The new body wouldn't have the power to discipline officers, but could gather complaints and information about misconduct and recommend reforms to city leadership. The protocol could be on the ballot for a referendum vote in November. Nearly every year in recent memories, Buffalo has blown its budget for settling lawsuits, usually as the result of police misconduct claims. Last year, the city set a $4 million budget for settling such lawsuits and blew it by more than $3 million. And just days after the new fiscal year, settling new lawsuits has already cost the taxpayers $80,000. Add to that the state attorney general's findings that 6 Buffalo cops have engaged in patterns of misconduct in recent years, while 4 others were found to have issues noted by investigators. It's a problem the Buffalo Chapter Revision Commission wants to help address. At its meeting Wednesday, the panel of lawyers and citizens responsible for amending the city's constitution advanced a reform measure that would create a civilian police advisory commission to provide oversight of the police department and recommend reforms to city leaders. The people who came to the public hearings and listening sessions want some police oversight, said Chapter Commission member Peter Reese, an attorney. The Attorney General has made it clear for years that the police should not police themselves. The idea for the advisory board was championed by Charter Commission member Caitlin Love Crowell. In a lengthy statement, she explained that she envisioned the panel as a body that could advise all branches of government on how to develop better public safety policy. "We entrust the police with a lot of money and a lot of power," Crowell wrote. "We even entrust them with ability to police themselves. But we don't see that happening. We are not seeing discernibly trustworthy internal oversight and we, the residents of Buffalo, deserve an accountable police force. The Advisory Commission would not have the power to subpoena police records or discipline officers, but it would be empowered to hear complaints from residents, meet with city and police leadership, and work with those officials to implement changes to policing practices. The 13-member Charter Commission is still hashing out exactly how the Police Advisory Commission would work, but members on Wednesday appeared willing to place the measure on voters' ballots in November. The Charter Commission will take a formal vote to do so on July 20th. In order for the proposed Police Advisory Commission to become reality, a majority of city voters will have to vote yes on the ballot referendum during the general election in November. As written, the Civilian Police Advisory Commission would have the power to gather concerns from community members about the incidents for police misconduct, discriminatory policing, excessive use of force, abuse of power, violation of civil rights, and violations of police policy. They would be able to inform police and city leaderships of those incidents. They would identify policy issues and present city and police leadership with research reports and recommendations. And they would meet with community members and police leadership to propose new policies, practices, and customs. To perform those duties, the Civilian Police Advisory Commission would be allowed to request files and records from the police department, which the department shall make every reasonable effort to respond to within 10 days. Also, receive, review, and comment on both police department policies and its annual budget request. They would receive notices of claims filed against the police department, plus any findings and settlements made by the city in response. They also would request an annual budget for costs incurred by the commission, and they would request the cooperation of other city agencies. It is strongly suggested that the various divisions of city government consult and assist the Civilian Police Advisory Commission and value the input of residents concerning city law enforcement, the charter proposal states. The Civilian Police Advisory Commission would meet at least 8 times a year and have its meetings open to the public. The Commission would also publish an annual report each year addressing the state of police-community relations, claims and settlements related to police actions, and areas of particular concern or improvement with the police department. The Civilian Police Advisory Commission would consist of 11 city residents plus 1 teenager aged 16 to 18 who would fill a 12th non-voting position. The mayor, common council president, and city controller would accept applications and appoint the initial commission. After that, the commission itself would choose 4 future members alongside the 3 city leaders. The final makeup of the commission is still in flux. Charter Commission member Norvella Pendergrass, an assistant district attorney for Erie County, said she'd like to see at least 1 current or former police officer added to the advisory commission. They would have knowledge about the issue that we want and policy that we want to change, she said Wednesday. I think that's extremely important. I think we're going forward with the understanding that because someone was an officer, that every officer thinks alike, and that's not the case. Not all Charter Commission members are thrilled with the Police Advisory Commission proposal. Reese, for one, said Wednesday, "The body has no power. This is a discussion group," he said. "It's lots of words if it does nothing." Also on Wednesday, the Charter Commission advanced a measure to study electoral reforms for Buffalo elections. The Commission had previously considered putting forth a referendum on ranked choice voting, semi-open primaries, and reductions in the number of signatures needed to run for office. Members couldn't agree on the particulars of those reforms, however, and ultimately voted down a slate of proposals at Wednesday's meeting. Instead, the Commission is poised to create a study committee that will meet from early 2027 through November 2028 with the explicit purpose of putting ranked choice voting and other reforms up for referendum. That study committee will be made up of residents and legal experts and will be given a budget to hire outside legal counsel. The committee will be tasked with studying and drafting voting reforms, getting those measures cleared by the Attorney General, and then placing them on voters' ballots in November of 2028. The Charter Commission is also moving forward on a referendum to the city budget process that would give the city controller more control over the annual spending plan. I think we're making a lot of progress, said Chairman Lawrence Rubin. We were dealt a bad hand, too little time, too little resources, but election reforms, budget reforms, community policing concerns, we are continuing to have those issues in front and center. You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from the Investigative Post. We read from the Investigative Post on Thursdays at 8:30 a.m. Your reader has been Janice. Thank you for listening.
Good morning. Welcome to another broadcast day on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, a private not-for-profit organization. As always, please feel free to contact us with your comments, suggestions, and questions you may have. And please stay with us during the Buffalo